everybody. Today we're going to be creating a picture, and with that picture we're going to be working with a shape like a circle or kind of a blob shape, and then we're going to turn that into a spring flower picture. So the supplies that you'll need for this project: you'll need a white piece of paper, you'll need something to paint or color with. Now I'm going to be using watercolor paints. I'll also show you, if you don't have watercolor paints, you can create this project with markers or crayons as well. You'll need either black marker or crayon, and that's all the supplies you'll need for this. So gather your things and we'll be ready to get started. Okay, I've gathered my supplies. I have a white piece of paper, I have some watercolor paints, and some water and a paintbrush. Now, if you don't have paints, I will show in a few minutes how to do this with just supplies like crayons or markers. Remember that when you're using things like watercolor paints, you have to add water to make them work. So I've got water in my brush, and I'm going to choose a color. It doesn't matter what color I start with. So I'm going to start with purple, and I'm going to paint a kind of blob or circle shape with my purple paint. Now I can go back and with the same purple and do that again. Remember, when we paint, we want to make sure that we're tickling our paper and that we're not pressing so hard that we give our brush a bad hair day. I'm ready to switch colors, so I'm going to rinse my brush off, make sure it's nice and clean, and I'm going to choose a new color to start with. And I'm going to keep painting circles and blobs on my paper. And notice, some of them are bigger, some are smaller than others. And remember, I'm cleaning my brush off in between each color change, and I'm spreading my blobs out. Notice they're not on top of each other or not touching each other. They're spread out. So I'm going to continue doing this until I have filled up my paper with circles Okay, now I have covered my paper with different size shapes, circles or blobs, so I'm going to let this dry. Now, if you don't have paints and you want to use crayons, you can absolutely do that. Instead of painting circles, I will just draw and color circles in with my crayons. They don't have to be perfect exact circles, and they can be all different shapes, or I'm sorry, all different sizes. We want them to stay kind of circle shapes or blob shapes, but all different sizes. That's what we want. Okay, now my paper is dry. I am ready for the next step. And remember, if you use crayons or markers to do your circles or blobs, that's totally fine. I used paint, but either one is okay. I need a black marker for the next step, or a black crayon will work as well. It can be any kind of black marker that you have, or a black crayon. We're going to turn each one of these blobs into a flower. And I'm going to show you some different ways that you can do that. So I'm going to start with my marker, and I'm just going to pick one. It doesn't matter which one I start with. And I'm going to outline the circle or the blob with my black marker. And then I'm going to do a really basic flower shape. And I'm just going to draw my petals around the flower. Now, they don't have to be perfect or exact. That's okay. That's a really basic flower shape that we can do. So I'm going to show you a few more that you can do. So I'm going to outline again, and it's okay, I got off a little bit right there. I don't really need to worry about that. I'm going to put a circle on the inside, and then I'm going to do kind of a wavy line around my circle like that. Okay. All right, now for another one, I'm going to outline the circle. Now this one, the petals are kind of pointy. They kind of have rounded sides and points. Now here's another tip that I like to do when I'm doing flowers is, as I'm drawing, I usually will turn my paper. This will help my petals to be more even while I'm drawing. Now, if those petals were challenging for you, that's okay. Just try your best. Okay. Now this one I'm going to do a little differently. I'm going to put a small circle in the middle, and then around that small circle I'm going to draw my petals do one. Now notice that my petals are still smaller, they're inside the circle, because I'm going to do another layer around. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to do bouncy lines like that. And it's okay that they're not all perfect and exact and even. Okay, I'm going to show you another kind. So I'm going to outline my circle. I'm going to put a kind of a dot in the middle. Then I'm going to draw straight lines out. Remember, if anytime I'm going too fast, you can always pause the video to get caught up. And at the end of my lines, I'm going to make a little dot. Now, these are some different, some of them are kind of different looking flowers. They might not be ones that we always see, but it's just kind of creating some different types of flowers. Don't worry, we're going to go back in and add some more color in a little bit. Now, if you have another way that you like to make flowers, you can definitely do that. If one of these was challenging for you and you had a hard time, maybe just stick with the other ones. I'm going to finish off and I'm going to, on each one of my blobs, turn each one of my blobs into a flower. I can reuse these designs or I can come up with some other different designs. It's your decision. Okay, so that's our next step, is to turn each one of these blobs into a flower. Now I've turned each one of my blobs into a flower. And don't worry about making yours exactly like mine. It doesn't have to be. Everyone's will look unique in their own way. Now some of our flowers I think could use a little bit more color. Like for example, a lot of them have a lot of white petals. So I have a couple options. I can use crayons to add some color. So maybe I want to choose a color and color in the petals with a crayon. Or if you use paint and you want to stick with using paint, you could also paint in your petals, which is what I'm going to do next. Oops. Okay, now I've got my paints ready to go. I'm going to dip my brush in the water, and again I can choose whatever colors I want when I'm painting these in. So you don't even have to paint the whole petal. Okay, maybe you want to leave a little bit of white showing. That's okay. And I don't have to do every single one. Like for example, this one, I'm just going to leave it like it is. Even though it's got some white on there, I'm just going to leave it. And like the ones like this, I don't need to add it, paint any more to that. I'm just going to go to the ones that have a lot of white on their petals and add a little bit of extra color onto those ones. Okay, so now that I've painted in my petals, I'm happy with the way my artwork looks. If you end up finding any places like maybe there's an empty space here, maybe I want to add something else here, I could definitely go back and do that. Or I can leave it with some of that empty white space left there. You are totally welcome to also put in things like, maybe I want to draw in like a stem with some leaves coming on it. That is your choice. You could go back and add those things in to your artwork if you would like to, but that's if you have some extra time and want to do that. I hope you enjoyed creating this artwork, and I can't wait to see everybody's creations. Bye.